Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams along with Chris King. It's been a long weekend, and now we start back on the week. Chris, your observations on what many call, and frankly I would agree, probably the most exciting weekend of professional football playoffs that we've maybe ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, all four games went right down to the wire. It was an interesting weekend for sure. Obviously, I don't understand Tennessee's game plan against Cincinnati. We talked about it yesterday. Why you try to throw the ball with Ryan Tannehill when you've got three running backs? It didn't make any sense Saturday night. It doesn't make sense now, 36 hours or whatever it is later. You get right down to it. They moved the first play from scrimmage. Tannehill threw an interception. First drive of the second half, after they ran the ball successfully, you had Derrick Henry pick up 20-some yards on three rushes. Dante Foreman had a 45-yard run down to the 9-yard line. And instead of handing the ball off again, you throw another pass and it gets intercepted. And then finally, right at the end of regulation, Tannehill goes and tries to force the ball and it gets intercepted, sets up the winning field goal. I mean, if you know your strength is running the ball, why do you try to throw it? I get the fact, like I said yesterday with you and Ray, I get you've got Julio Jones, you've got A.J. Brown that are healthy.
Right.
So what? If your bread and butter is running the ball, you run the ball. If you were worried that Henry wasn't 100%, you still had two other guys that carried the load when he wasn't there. You still run the ball.
You can go back to the Woody Hayes line, which is the reason when asked why he ran the ball so much, he said, because when you pass, 2 out of 3 things can happen, and those 2 out of 3 things aren't good.
That's true.
So not that I want to channel Woody Hayes at this point, but nevertheless, it seems to work for this. Then you get the night game where, the anointed one, Aaron Rodgers, takes the Packers down on the first drive of the game. It looks like, okay, lights out. Well, that's the last time Green Bay saw the end zone, and it was the only time an offensive touchdown was scored in what was an ugly game. But if you're San Francisco, that's what you want to do. You want to play ugly.
Yeah, and you said it. You summed it up beautifully right there in one word: ugly. It was ugly football, and Green Bay, much like Tennessee, has no one to blame but themselves for losing that game. They lost 10 points on special teams. They had a field goal blocked at the end of the half. Bojorquez gets that punt blocked in under 5 minutes to go in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
That led to the tying touchdown. They gave up 2 big kick returns, one for 45 yards, one for 32. Mm-hmm. They just didn't make plays on special teams, and that's something that people talked about all season. Green Bay was the worst special teams unit in the league. Mm-hmm. They proceeded to live up to that billing.
They proved it, yeah, no question about it. And, the other day when you and I and Rock were talking, and we were talking about, we were going over players who, at the time, we were going over the probables, because at that point, that's all we really knew, because, it wasn't close enough to game time to get the absolutes. But when we went down the list and I said the most important person to me was Bosa on San Francisco being okay, it wasn't because I was disrespecting Jimmy G. I know him. I know what they can expect from him. But Bosa, they don't have Bosa. They don't have a chance to put that defensive pass rush, because they can move him all over the field.
Yeah, him and Eric Armstead really controlled the line of scrimmage.
You have no idea where they're coming from, and that into itself alters your game plan. So when I heard he was going to play, I figured, okay, San Francisco's opportunities of winning go way up.
I thought that they would hang in the game. I didn't think that Green Bay would only score 10 points. I think losing A.J. Dillon was a blow for them too, because he's more of a bruiser than Aaron Jones is, and he probably would have been a better fit in the run game in that weather.
But look, there's no excuse. There's none for Green Bay. They had the better personnel. They were the number 1 seed. They had everything. They had the weather on their side. I mean, everything was on their side. There was no excuse to go out there and only score a single touchdown on your first drive when you had 6 drives in the second half, and best you could do out of that was come up with, a couple field goals.
Right.
So
that's true. They have no one to blame but themselves. You have to give them credit. They did put together a good defensive presence. I mean, if you look, San Francisco, like you said, they couldn't find the end zone either. It's like there was a force field at the 5-yard line,
right.
where if you try to run into it, it was like running into an electric fence.
Right.
But neither team was impressive offensively. You have to wonder if that will affect things going forward. Obviously, there's a lot of familiarity with them and the Rams. And the old saying, familiarity breeds contempt.
Right.
The Rams are obviously going to be irritated after losing both meetings to San Francisco, including that one in Week 18 that got San Francisco into the playoffs.
Right.
So that's going to be something to look forward to this week as well.
Oh, for sure. On Sunday, we both had teams that we would have preferred win but lost, which doesn't matter that they were still entertaining games. The Buccos, who you and I were on with Ray yesterday on the pregame show, I thought it was going to be close. It shouldn't have been, to be fair and honest. It shouldn't have been. But as hard as the Rams tried to hand that ball game back to the Buccaneers, I still, to this day, will not figure out with 45 seconds on the clock, which isn't, the world. I get that, but it's enough. Why you do not do everything humanly possible, including tackling, Odell Beckham Jr. and Cooper Kupp, because they're the only two guys that are going to be able to beat you long on that team and get them into field goal position. I mean, I would have done everything. But then when Todd Bowles blitzes, I'm like, you cannot be, because then and then again, if you looked at the game, you looked at the players, they didn't know where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, Levante David looked like he was just standing around on that.
He did. I mean, Kupp went by him like he was, standing there, which he was doing. Like he was like, wait a minute, where am I supposed to be? Well, I'll tell you what, here's the tick. Here's your first thing. If a guy in a blue jersey runs by you, chase him, okay? That would be good. Or if a guy in front of you has the ball, chase him. But by that time, it was too late. So, I don't know. It's one of those situations where you can only do what you can do. They had no business, they meaning the Buccaneers, had no business hanging as close as they did with the Rams, because the Rams had far more talent than the Buccaneers did on yesterday. And it's something that we both tried to tell Ray, but he wasn't going to listen.
He couldn't hear over those speakers.
Well, that is what he said. So I'll take him at his word on that. But, when we both tried to reason with him that the Rams had the better quality team, didn't mean necessarily we're going to win, but they were healthier and they had a better talent on the field. At the end of the day, it was 3 passes by Matt Stafford that put them in field goal range for a field goal by a guy who got cut by the Buccaneers in preseason. So
let's not get it wrong. Matt Gay is not a bad kicker. I mean,
no.
He had some success,
right.
But
no, I mean, they had a guy who they were used to. That's all, and that happens in a lot of cases where
that's true.
You have a kicker who you're used to and stuck up for the Buccaneers, who they trusted, and this other guy came in. It didn't mean he was bad; just meant that he didn't do enough to get Todd Light and Bruce Arians to decide that the future would be better off with him. So he went to the Rams, and good on him. It's like what happened with Robbie Gould in when he ended up in San Francisco. It wasn't Robbie Gould couldn't kick. As a matter of fact, Robbie Gould had more experience in kicking in Lambeau than the kicker for the Packers did. So at the end of the day, that's one of those positions, the special teams positions, the kickers, where you'll see a guy who'll get cut because he does a terrible job, with one team, or even stinks up the preseason, and suddenly he's money. So there you go. You had McPherson, the kid who just came out of college, who basically said to the team as he was coming off on the field, I guess we're going to the playoffs. You know, he's got that kind of cockiness to him, which you have to have as a kicker. I mean, you
That's
have
true.
to.
I mean, you can't be timid as a kicker, especially in big situations.
No, you can't. And then the night game, that one I'll leave to you.
Well, I mean, what can you say that hasn't already been said? I mean, you watch the lead change 4 times in the last 2 minutes of regulation. You know, you can't ask anything more of Josh Allen than what you saw yesterday.
Absolutely.
I mean, the 4th down play where he, you know, escaped not 1 but 2 sacks, and then found Gabriel Davis for the touchdown, and then to drive the team down the field knowing that you've got 1 minute and 2 seconds and you've got to go 75 yards. I guess he did it too well because he only took 49 seconds to get down the field.
How about the 2-point conversion too?
I mean, Diggs made a good play in the corner of the end zone.
Yeah. I mean, he had to run around for 5 seconds on that play.
Yeah. And, you know, the biggest problem that I have with it is the same problem that I've had, you know, and Chiefs fans will be like, you're just saying this now, but I said it 3 years ago when New England went into Arrowhead Stadium and beat the Chiefs in overtime, whereas Kansas City didn't see the ball. It's the same concept here. And a playoff game should not be decided by a coin flip.
No.
If you get down to it, even like you said in the pre-show, if you score a touchdown and the other team gets the ball, if they score a touchdown, if they have to go for 2, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But at least give the team an opportunity, because for a game to come down to the flip of a coin, where you know you have no say in how it's going to end up, it's not like you got a 2-point out there.
Right.
Is asinine. And you know, I mean, I don't really like a lot of the rules they have in college football, but I do like the concept that both teams have an opportunity to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, you see guys, like I said, like Louis Riddick, who like play better defense. Well, for those of you who don't know, Louis Riddick did really well in the NFL, and I don't know if his team ever went to the playoffs. So there's that. On top of that, you know, he wasn't out there yesterday. If it went the other way, and, Kansas City kicks that field goal to send it to overtime, and Buffalo wins on the first drive of overtime, is he going to say the same thing? Kansas City play better defense?
Well, as I said in the pre-show when we were talking, my theory of the case is this. Okay, you could make a case where both teams, both Buffalo and Kansas City, could have won the game outright in regulation. Okay, fine. We'll stipulate to that. So both teams equally had opportunities to win the game. They didn't, hence they're in overtime, okay? If you're in overtime, at least you should have the opportunity to try to match the other. They do it in the field goal thing, and we both said, and I agree wholeheartedly with your point. I don't care if it only works in the postseason.
Right.
When you do that. All right, because we don't want 5-hour football games during the regular season.
Yeah, we don't want to see the Jaguars and the Jets go to
penalty kicks. Yeah, we don't want to see that. But at the end of the day, it seems with so much on the line, when you've got Josh Allen sitting over there and he has nothing to do because he can't do anything. It is what it is, and I don't think it's sour grapes. I think you can always improve. Look, Kansas City's going to the playoffs. Why? Because Kansas City won a game. Good on them. All right. The Rams are going. Good on them. All of the teams that won, arguably, begrudgingly deserve to move on. But that doesn't mean you don't try to fix what is a glaring issue in the league. That's all.
Yeah, and the only other issue that I saw, and like I said, I mentioned to you in the pre-show, is if they installed the taunting rule based on what Tyreek Hill did last year, and he did the same thing on his way to the end zone with a minute to go, why didn't they throw a flag there? If you did the exact same thing, and that's why you created the rule.
Right. I've got that same problem with the quote-unquote unwritten rules of baseball about where a guy flips a bat when he hits a long home run, or he stands there for a second and he looks at it. I have zero problem with that, because when, the pitcher strikes somebody out, they come bouncing off the mounds, with giving you that scowl and that pounding the fist into the glove. Again, that's great. I want to see emotion. If a guy hits the ball 400 feet, it's your problem. You threw it. Okay. So don't throw it there again, or he'll do it again. So, why you have to be upset and hit the guy with a ball, that's crazy. It's the same way in football. If rules need to be changed, change them. It's for the betterment of everybody. So.
Yeah, the last thing I'm going to say about that is, like I said about that game, is my wife said Andy Reid looks like Wilford Brimley. I said, for those of you who remember the movie The Natural, Robert Redford, Wilford Brimley was Pop Fisher, the manager of the moribund New York Knights.
Right.
They were carried by Roy Hobbs.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, Patrick Mahomes was Roy Hobbs at the end of the game.
That's right.
Finally, what I can say about Josh Allen, Jim, I know you're a cinematic buff. You remember Rocky II,
mm-hmm.
where at the end of the movie, it's the 15th round. They
mm-hmm.
both go down, and you've got the legendary Stu Nahan all going, "If neither man gets up, Creed will retain the title automatically." That's basically what happened. The Chiefs were Rocky Balboa. They grabbed the ropes and managed to pull themselves up.
Right.
And Buffalo couldn't get back off the mat at the end.
Yeah.
Anything away from what Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs did. They won the game.
Well, given the last 2 minutes of that game, you probably could have played the Tom Conti Rocky score through that entire 2.5 minutes, and it would have seemed very apropos. But enough about the weekend, because we're going to have more opportunities to talk about these games next week, this week, as we keep getting closer to the playoff championships. But we're going to go talk a little bit about some good quality, mind you, mid-major college basketball. We're going to start with a couple of states.
Yeah, it's going to be Murray State. They're at home. They face Tennessee Tech, everybody's favorite team when it comes to a tech school. Nobody thinks about Virginia Tech. Why not? We got Tennessee Tech.
Forget MIT. You got Tennessee Tech.
Yeah. Matt McMahon's school team 17-2 this year. They've won 7 straight games, coming off a 8-point win over UT Martin the other day. They're 7-0 in the Ohio Valley. They played some really good basketball, let's be honest. Golden Eagles 5-12. Tennessee Tech not having much luck on the road. They're 1-9 this season. Murray State's a perfect 10-0 at home on the year. The Racers 7th in the nation in scoring offense, averaging 82.6 points a game. They shoot 49% from the floor, which is 16th in the country. They knock down 8.8 threes a game. On top of that, they're good on the glass, pulling down 40 boards a night. And they're 45th in scoring defense. So that gives them a scoring differential of 19.2 points a game on average. Meanwhile, you've got a Tennessee Tech team that's 298th in scoring defense at 74.1 points per game. They're 306th in field goal percentage defense. They're 286th in threes allowed. And they're 331st in 2-point defense as opposing teams shoot 53.6% inside the arc. That's not a good number if you're Tennessee Tech. The Golden Eagles are 6-20-1 in their last 27 on Monday. They're 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 after scoring at least 90 points. Murray State 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 after an ATS loss, and 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 overall. The way Murray State's played basketball this year, it's going to be a challenge for Tennessee Tech to even stay on the floor. After all, we saw this Murray State team beat Belmont by 22 on the road, and the Bruins are a good basketball team themselves. They won by 26 and 40 over Eastern Illinois last week. Before that UT Martin game, for the Racers, with 18th win here as they take care of Tennessee Tech. Those teams will meet again on the road in Tennessee at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville on Thursday night. So stay tuned for that.
Murray State is one of those little schools that year in and year out in whatever sport that they're playing, they really do represent. They've got a nice little athletic department there, and they've got a very I guess the best way would be to say it is they've got a very strong and very good alumni base. So both Murray State and I'm sure Tennessee Tech's got a good one, but Murray State year in and year out is the team that you kind of always look up and say, well, look, there they are in the NCAA whatever. Sometimes it's baseball, sometimes it's basketball. They've got a good little program there. So good on them. So we're moving from Murray State, and we're heading to...
That's right, Morehead State.
And another Tennessee team.
Yeah, we're going to stick with another Kentucky-Tennessee matchup. The Morehead State Eagles favored by 13.5 over Tennessee State. Tennessee State is 8-11 this year. Morehead State is 14-5. The Eagles are a perfect 9-0 at home, while Tennessee State 2-7 as the road team. Morehead State, they've won 8 straight games coming into this one. That includes a 71-64 road win at Tennessee State back on January 15th. Morehead State 61st in field goal percent, 46.7%, and they're 19th in three-point shooting. Meanwhile, Tennessee State just 276 in scoring defense, 256 in field goal percentage defense, and they are foul happy. They are 344th in the nation as they give up 22.3 free throw attempts a game. That's not going to get it done. You can't afford to give up free points when you're a sub-500 team. Morehead State 11-5 in their last 16 after an ATS loss, 11-5 against spread in their last 16 at home. Meanwhile, Tennessee State 3-14 against the spread in their last 17 on the road against teams with a home winning percentage better than 600. And they don't do well with success. They're 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 after a straight-up win.
Well, good on you, Morehead State. We'll see how things – now, you said that they won 8 straight. So they were 0-11?
No. That's Morehead State has won 8 straight. They were 6-5.
Oh, I'm sorry. So.
No, Tennessee State, let me just take a quick look here what they've done lately. Tennessee State is on a 1-game win streak. They beat Austin Peay the other day.
Well, there you go, another Tennessee team.
And just to give you a little bit of insight, because we just talked about Murray State, Tennessee State, despite being 8-11, beat Tennessee Tech by 16 last week at home.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't look good for Tennessee Tech facing Murray State on the road.
No, you're absolutely right on that one. That's for sure. All right, let's go to the ice. Got some fun stuff going on over there.
Right, and we're going to go first to Madison Square Garden. The New York Rangers, a solid favorite over the Los Angeles Kings. Kings are 21-16-5 on the year. The Rangers are 27-11-4. The Rangers 12-3-2 on home ice. The Kings are 8-6-3 on the road. Kings did beat the Rangers 2 weeks ago at the Crypto Bomb
building out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, January 10th. The Kings are playing the second game of a back-to-back. They played New Jersey yesterday. They did come up victorious there, so you have to wonder if they'll be a little fatigued. The Rangers average 3.29 goals per game on home ice, while the Kings, they don't score a whole lot on the road, just 2.41 goals a game. It's going to be Jonathan Quick, 11-10-4 with a 256 goals against, a 914 save percentage, and 2 shutouts between the pipes for the Kings. Meanwhile, the Rangers will turn to Igor Shesterkin, 19-4-2 with a 207 goals against, a 936 save percentage, and 3 shutouts. The Kings, they have struggled in the second game back-to-backs. They're 3-8 in their last 11 games in those situations, going back to last year. They're 1-5 in their last 6 as an underdog. Meanwhile, the Rangers are 4-0 in their last 4 at home. They're 8-1 in their last 9 as a home favorite. And they're 4-1 in their last 5 overall. More importantly, the Rangers are pissed off about the way they played in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago. And they haven't forgotten about how lifeless they looked in that game. Mm-hmm. Now, instead of being the team playing the second game of back-to-back, they're the team facing the team playing the second game of back-to-back.
Right.
That adds into their favor. Look for Shesterkin and the Kings to shut down, or Shesterkin and the Rangers to shut down the Kings and get the victory.
Let me ask you a quick question. The hockey trade deadline is coming up here soon. Do you think, because it's always fun to play general manager with other people's teams, do you think that it would make, if I were the Kings, I bet you I could get a pretty good haul for Jonathan Quick.
That's true. You probably could. The question is, I'm not sure if Quick has any kind of trade protection in his contract.
Yeah, true.
Let me see here if there's anything on that, because I know that some of these guys have some of these ridiculous.
No, I get it. There's only I can only be traded to teams where they have good Italian food in the city. That kind of crazy stuff. So yeah, I get that. I was just thinking, if I'm looking for a keeper, and there are more than a few who are, I would think that the Kings could pull in some pretty good, a little bit of a minor King's ransom there, no pun intended, for Jonathan Quick.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, his salary is, his cap hit is $5.8 million, but he's under contract. His base salary will be $2.5 million next year before he becomes a free agent after 2022-23. The one thing that might knock down his value a little bit is his age. I mean, he's 35 now, 36. He just turned 36 a couple weeks ago. But still, I mean, you could do worse when it comes to picking up a goaltender than you could with Quick there.
Right.
I mean, look at Carey Price. He's making $10.5 million to not play.
Right.
Because he's played a grand total of no games. But you look at some of the guys that are ahead of him in cap numbers. Sure, I'm not going to argue with Bobrovsky or Vasilevsky making more money than him. But you got Marc-Andre Fleury, Matt Murray in Ottawa is making $6.25 million, and what's he done? I mean, you look at his record; it's not good.
Well, the money that you're talking about with Quick, that's cap friendly.
Yeah, well, that's because he signed that 10-year extension way back in 2012.
Right.
But yeah, obviously it would be a favorable thing. And then you got Hellebuyck is ahead of him, Jacob Markstrom, Jordan Binnington, and good old Philippe Grubauer makes $5.9 million to stink up the place in Seattle on a nightly basis.
No.
I mean, don't you think the Kraken might want to have a veteran goaltender that could do something?
It wouldn't be a bad idea, but I would look for Quick to go to a contender, not necessarily.
True. But I mean, you look at some of these teams like Jack Campbell, from Toronto. He's been mentioned as a Vezina candidate. He only makes $1.65 million. He used to be Quick's backup in Los Angeles.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's how it kind of works sometimes. As a matter of fact, Grubauer was Ryan Holtby's backup. So
that's true.
You never know. All right, moving on. Just thinking, I'm trading people. It's Monday. We trade things in a minute.
And speaking of Brandon Holtby, we've got the Dallas Stars on the road to face the formerly known as Broad Street Bullies. Now they might as well be the Broad Street Babies because they can't beat anybody. The Stars are 20-16-2. The Flyers are 13-20-8. Granted, Dallas is just 6-12-1 on the road, but Philadelphia is only 6-9-4 at home, and they are 0-8-3 in their last 11. They were beaten 6-3 on the road by Buffalo Saturday. That game, Carter Hart was supposed to get the night off, but Martin Jones didn't get the memo, got shelled, gave up 4 goals in the opening 18 minutes before getting the hook in that one. So Carter Hart will be back in there on short rest. He's 7-13-5 with a .290 goals against, a .911 save percentage, and 1 shutout against the aforementioned Braden Holtby. 8-1 with a .268 goals against and a .913 save percentage for Dallas. Dallas is 19th in goals per game at 2.89. The Flyers 27th at 2.49. Dallas has won their last 4 games against Metropolitan Division opponents. They're 5-1 in their last 6 as a favorite. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a losing record. And those last 2 stats to show you how bad Philadelphia has been. They're 1-10 in their last 11 after losing by at least 3 goals. And come on, you lost by 3 to Buffalo. They're 0-5 in their last 5 at home. Throw in the fact that, the Stars, like I said, they're 6-12-1 on the road, but they're coming in off back-to-back road wins. They beat Buffalo and Detroit last week.
Wow. So, all right. There's not really much to say about this. I was trying to figure out something to say, but
you can talk about what the Flyers could do, like trade everybody.
Yeah, that would be a start. It's funny. I sometimes listen to Philadelphia's morning radio, and I did a few days ago. And they don't talk about the Flyers. It's almost as if the Flyers, have been exiled somewhere.
Well, what do they talk about then? I mean, the 76ers haven't been all that great either, and the Eagles are out of the playoffs.
Right.
Are they talking about the Phillies who might not see the field until June?
I was going to say they can't really talk about the Phillies because they don't know when they're going to play. they actually are constantly trying to trade people from the both the Eagles and the 76ers. So maybe I just caught them on a bad day. You never know. So all right, cool.
And Ryan summed it up nicely about the Flyers. The Flyers suck.
Ryan, you're right. And before James does it, all right, James, if you're out there listening, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe because we want you to like us. Come on, we're nice people. Like us and subscribe to us, okay? Let's go to the association as we were trading players in the National Hockey League. We can certainly do it in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, the trade deadline's coming up for the NBA, too. Obviously, All-Star Weekend is a couple weeks away, so you can watch everybody on the floor not play defense.
Right.
Just some players. Cleveland at home over the Knicks. The Knicks 23-24, Cleveland 28-19. Cleveland 13-9 at home. The Knicks 11-10 on the road. You figure out whether the Knicks have a winning record on the road and not at home. The Cavs are second in the league in scoring defense at 102.5 points per game. They're eighth in field goal percentage defense and ninth in three-point defense. The Knicks 27th in scoring offense at 104.1 points a game. They shoot the ball poorly at 43.6%, though they're ninth in three-point shooting. That kind of overshadows the fact that Thibodeau's team is in the top 5 in scoring defense because when you don't score any points, it's a dogfight every night.
Mm-hmm.
New York 6-13 against the spread in their last 19 after an ATS win, 1-5 in their last 6 as a road underdog. And they're playing the second game of back-to-back. They did beat the Clippers yesterday, 110-102. They haven't had a lot of luck in the second game of back-to-back. Remember, they played Charlotte last Monday and then played Minnesota Tuesday, both those games. Then they proceeded to lose Thursday, but that was a different story. Cleveland 7-1 in their last 8 at home against teams with a winning road record. 5-1 in their last 6 on Monday, 10-3-1 in the last 14 at home. Let me just take a quick look at the latest injury report because I was looking at it earlier, and it's about time that they updated it because sometimes the league's slow about that stuff. Let's see who we got that could be missing today. I'm sure there's some really exciting games. I know Lauri Markkanen won't play for Cleveland. He has an ankle sprain. Rajon Rondo is questionable with a hamstring. Jared Allen also questionable with an illness for the Knicks. Ryan Arcidiacono is out with a sprained ankle. Mitchell Robinson questionable with an ankle sprain. Kemba Walker's questionable with a sore knee. And Nerlens Noel expected to take the floor. He's probable with a knee injury. He's missed a while. He doesn't really do a whole lot anyway when he's on the floor. But he does take up space, so kudos for that. But either way, the Knicks playing this thing back-to-back. I don't like their chances here against Cleveland. The Cavaliers have played some good basketball. A lot better than a lot of people expected.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're getting some traction, and actually, there's an interesting statistic that that LeBron James is playing the same amount of minutes now as he did when he played with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that just goes to show you.
In that case, it's just because of the fact that the Lakers don't have anybody to back him up.
Well, that's my point. Yeah, I think that the reason he's playing is I believe I didn't look at the stats this morning, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, standings I should say. I believe the Lakers, for the first time at this point in time in the season for quite a while, is under 500.
I believe you're correct in that statement. I'm just gonna take a quick look here. Yeah, they're 23-24.
Yeah.
Sadly, the Clippers are 23-25.
Well, they're the better in their own building. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some bad teams this season. I mean,
Yeah.
You got Orlando. They've got 9 wins now. The Pistons have 11.
Yeah, but when you think of the Lakers, right? You don't think of the Lakers as being a mediocre team.
That's true. I mean, you look. I mean, last year they were. Yeah, I mean, if you go back 3 years, they were sub 500. That was that whole stretch, from 2013 to 2013-14 to 2018-19. They didn't win more than 37 games, but that's because.
Yeah, that was the post Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, that was the Byron Scott, Luke Walton era of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at some of the players that they had on those teams. Just looking at the win share numbers, Jody Meeks, Ed Davis, Lou Williams.
Let's just put it this way: none of those people you're speaking of, none of their jerseys are hanging in the rafters at the building formerly known as the Staples Center.
Right. I mean, if you go back to 13-14, that was the year that Kobe only played 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then Steve Nash was there for 15 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got a whole bunch of guys that you're like, I didn't even know these guys were still playing. Steve Blake, I thought he retired, 15 years ago. But that might have just been another guy that looked like him. But you had Paul Gasol. He was near the end of his career at that point.
Right.
I should say the end of his usefulness as a player.
Right. Not his career, but
yeah. And then, Brian did play 35 games in 14-15.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at the rest of the lineup and you had, good God, this is a horrible lineup. Ed Davis, Carlos Boozer. They had Jordan Clarkson and Wayne Ellington. They had Jeremy Lin. Remember Lin Sanity?
I do, when he was with the Lakers. With the Knicks.
And then, Bryant played 66 games in 15-16, but he didn't really have anybody around him. He had Julius Randle and D'Angelo Russell, but they're 21 and 19, respectively. He had Roy Hibbert. What the hell ever happened to Roy Hibbert? He had a productive career in Indiana. Then he signed a free agent deal and pretty much vanished because I don't recall him ever doing anything after he left Indiana.
I don't remember him doing anything after he left Georgetown, but that's just me. Anyway, where are we going next, boss?
We will go to the Bulls and the Thunder, coming to you from the building formerly known as the Chesapeake Energy Arena. I forgot what it's called now. Frankly, it's not important. Nobody cares about the Thunder. They're terrible. They are 14-32. The Bulls 28-17. And you're looking at two teams that are struggling right now. The Bulls have lost 6 of 7. They've had all kinds of injuries. They lost to Orlando yesterday by 19.
Oof.
They get a Oklahoma City team that's lost 9 of their last 10. They lost to Cleveland on Saturday. At least, the Bulls have an excuse. Lonzo Ball's out until March. Zach LaVine's been missing games. Alex Caruso broke his wrist on that flagrant foul. I don't know if you saw that the other night. By Grayson Allen, who was suspended for a whole 1 game. Now, if you ask people that don't like players from Duke, the 2 names that come up that people hate the most are, Jim, can you answer this trivia question?
I can give you Christian Laettner.
And the other one is Grayson Allen.
There you go.
Funny thing is, Laettner is from the hometown of both me and my wife. He's from Angola, New York.
Oh, okay.
He played high school ball at Nichols up in the city, but most people there don't like him either. So that tells you something.
Well, at least he's consistent.
That's true. Oklahoma City, last in the league in scoring offense, last in field goal percentage, last in 3-point shooting. The Bulls 4-1 in their last 5 after an ATS loss. They're 7-2 in their last 9 when they're starting 5 play at least 160 minutes in the first game of a back-to-back. They're 8-3 in their last 11 on Monday. Latest injury report has LaVine as being questionable with a sore knee. That'd be a big boost for Chicago if he can play. Cole Husek also questionable with a knee bruise. Like I said, Ball is out. Caruso's out with a broken wrist. Derrick Jones out with a hyperextended knee. Javonte Green is questionable with a strained adductor. For the Thunder, Derek Favors out again with a sore back. And everybody else for them is on a G League assignment. Who cares about those guys anyway? It's the Thunder. Besides Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, and Josh Giddey, kudos if you can name other guys that actually mean anything of value to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Either way, I like the Bulls minus the 2, especially if LaVine plays. If it comes out that he plays, I'd expect to see that number go up from where it is right now.
There you go. Well, speaking of 2, let's go for 2 for the money.
All right. A couple of games we didn't talk about in here, but the USC Trojans minus 12 over Arizona State. They're playing at USC at the Galen Center. In case you don't know, Arizona State will not have Coach Bobby Hurley. He was suspended. Also suspended Arizona State's Jay Heath, who averages 9.9 points a game. They were both suspended after their actions in the 79-76 loss to Stanford Saturday. Nobody's really been impressed with what Hurley's done in Tempe anyway, but this isn't going to help matters any, creating more of a sideshow. Andy Kennedy's done a great job over there at USC. I look for them to get the win at home. We talked about the Rangers and the Kings. The Rangers are going to be aggravated after knowing they lost that game to Los Angeles 2 weeks ago. They get the Kings on the second game of a back-to-back. The Rangers play well at home. Look for that to pan out there. We said the Flyers are terrible. Ryan backed us up. He said he lives near Philly, and they've given up talking about the Flyers on the radio. Makes you wonder, makes you yearn for the days of Bobby Clark and Bernie Parent and all those guys.
The Broad Street Bullies, yeah.
Yeah, the Flyers.
We just talked about Cleveland and New York.
Yeah, we just talked about Cleveland and the Knicks. Like Nathan said, first to 100 wins.
Wins. Okay.
It might actually end up edging over that number just because, every time that you think it's going to be a low scoring game, they turn around and screw you over and push it over. It's a low total for this one as it is. Last I saw it was 202. It have gone down since then or up since then.
That is
low. At home.
Yeah. All right, let's play 4 for the show.
Right. Well, we just talked about the Bulls and the Thunder. Don't think we have to say a whole lot more about that one. Tennessee State. We told you Tennessee State is bad. Morehead State's 9-0 at home. And Tennessee State lost. I mistyped that. The next one should be Murray State over Tennessee Tech. I got that crossed up because I have Eastern Illinois down in the bottom part. It just carried over. Murray State over Tennessee Tech, not Eastern Illinois. Don't worry, we have you Eastern Illinois fans covered. Murray State is obviously a very good basketball team. Tennessee Tech is not. And the Flames at home at the Scotiabank Saddle Dome over the Blues. The Blues playing the second game of a back-to-back. Expect to see Jordan Bennington in net. He's given up 16 goals in his last 4 starts. The Flames are rested. Look for them to get the win on home ice and to cool off the Blues.
All right. Now for the fun stuff. We've had a long weekend. It's time to let off a little steam and have some fun and just kind of take a dart and throw it at the board. And, any combination of these might bring you something. Tell us about them, Chris.
Yeah, like we were just talking about Eastern Illinois, they're playing actually the basketball power of Belmont. We talked about Belmont being a pretty good team when they're not playing Murray State. Belmont has been rolling otherwise. The Bruins are 14-5. They're coming off a loss at Morehead State, which shows you how good Morehead State is playing at home. But Eastern Illinois is awful. Let's face it, they're 2-16. They've lost 9 straight. Their last 3 losses have come by 26, 40, and 29 points. They're 0-5 in the Ohio Valley. They're 2-16 overall. They don't win it. Their 2 wins are over non-Division I teams. And their closest loss is, they lost to Central Michigan by 1 and Albany by 2. Everything else is by double digits. Belmont should win this one by 40, provided they don't decide to, stand around and just dribble out the clock. Finally, Norfolk State over Morgan State. A couple teams nobody really talks about. Norfolk State's played pretty good basketball at home. They are 6-0 there this season. Morgan State, the Bears, they've had their issues, and 1-6 on the road doesn't get it done in the MEAC. Western Illinois, if we've talked about them before, I like them -6 at home over South Dakota. The Coyotes are weak defensively. They don't do a whole lot necessarily offensively either. Facing a team like Western Illinois that can pile up points in a hurry, can make an uphill climb for them. We've got the Eastern Washington Eagles going on the road to face Idaho State out in the Big Sky. Eastern Washington, they're a team that scared Kansas last year in the tournament. Idaho State 14 on the year. Granted, all 3 wins at home. That doesn't really mean a whole lot when you look at the opponents they've beaten. In case you're wondering, those 3 teams that they beat at home. The basketball powers of Eastern Oregon Bethesda and their lone Division I win. The basketball power of the Idaho Vandals, who they beat by 7. They're coming off 3 straight losses. They lost by 17, 32, and 12. Eastern Washington, you have to think, can get the victory, even going on the road. They've won 6 of their last 9 coming into this one. David Riley's done a good job taking over after Shante Lakins left town to take the Portland job. Wonder if he's regretting that one. These hockey games, if you see 2 of them, I have the puck line on there. That's because the money lines are ridiculously prohibitive. Yeah, you're right, Nathan. Bruins for Belmont. I just mistyped it. It was a long day. But if you look at the lines here, Minnesota, they're going off on the money line at minus 380 now over Minnesota or over Montreal. The Chicago-Colorado game is going off at minus 320. That's why I didn't put the money lines on there. Obviously, they're prohibitive favorites. We know Montreal can't score, and Minnesota plays very well at home. Same token with Chicago. They're not a big offensive team. And the Avalanche lead the league in goals per game. In between there, Vegas road at Washington. Vegas has played fairly well on the road. They struggled on their homestand, so they want to put that behind them. They went just 3 times in an 8-game homestand. Washington, and Jim can tell you, they struggled the other night against Ottawa. They were behind 2-0 in the third period. They had to win 3-2 in overtime. It's hard to have faith in it when you struggle against the Senators and you don't score for 40-plus minutes.
Well, the other thing, too, you got with the Knights, there's a little bit of a sibling rivalry here because you have George McPhee, who was the general manager for a number of years in Washington, who was let go and then built Vegas into a powerhouse franchise that literally in their first years, in the NHL, ironically played the Capitals for the Stanley Cup. But it is there. George, George knows the Capitals know George. So as I said, there's a little bit of a extra added oomph when the Knights and the Caps get together, which isn't all that often, but it does merit some consideration for sure.
Right. And so that's going to be an interesting matchup up there at Ted Leonsis' building. Finally, in the NBA, we got the Suns -9 over Utah. DeAndre Ayton is doubtful tonight with an ankle injury. Meanwhile, at last report, Donovan Mitchell was still in the concussion protocol for Utah. They also had Hassan Whiteside and company. Rudy Gobert were both questionable yesterday in that game against Golden State. Look, keep an eye out to see if Quinn Snyder rests them being the second game of back-to-back and third game in 4 nights. The Pelicans -3 over the Pacers. Like Nathan just said, Brandon Ingram out with an ankle injury. Devontae Graham is questionable with a sore ankle. But on the flip side, Malcolm Brogdon is out for the Pacers with Achilles. Domantas Sabonis also out with an ankle sprain. Miles Turner out with that stress fracture in his foot. Also, T.J. Warren and T.J. McConnell are still out, which has been an ongoing trend. Karis LeVert questionable with a sore calf. So you're already -3 starters for the Pacers in that one. Potentially 4 if LeVert can't take the floor. I get that Ingram's missing, and you haven't seen Zion Williamson all season, but you have to think the Pelicans playing at home can get the edge there. I'm going to look for the Knicks and Cavs to go over. It was 202 when I wrote it. Let me see if it's moved at all. It is sitting at they actually moved it up to 203. Cleveland's actually now favored by 6 instead of 7, so more power to you if you jump now. But I still expect it'll go over. I just think that Cleveland can do enough against the Knicks, especially with the Knicks being a little fatigued, to push that one just past the mark. You won't see a whole ton of points. Might get a 208 or 210, but that's still greater than 203.
As we were going through the list there, you had mentioned the University of Idaho, not Idaho State, which was graphically mentioned, but you did mention the University of Idaho. And a friend of mine, shout out to Kelly Johnson. Kelly works for NBC Sports Bay Area out in San Francisco. She is the Giants reporter. We will have Kelly on when and if baseball season comes back. But the reason I bring Kelly up in the University of Idaho is Kelly and her father are the only father-daughter team to be inducted ever into the University of Idaho Hall of Fame for both of them for their basketball exploits. So there you go. The Vandals may not have much of a team this year, but for Kelly and for her dad, good on them. You know, when you brought it up, I thought, okay, well, we'll give a shout out to Kelly and her father for that rather august distinction. So good on them.
Sure.
Yeah. So there you
go. Roland, Seton Hall -7 over St. John's. I'm in favor of that. Red Storm 0-4 on the road this season. Seton Hall just beat St. John's at the Carnesecca Arena the other day by 6. You have to think playing at home in the ever popular place, which the great of Newark, New Jersey, which Bobby the Brain Heenan would say when they talk about parts unknown, they talk about downtown Newark. You have to think that the Pirates with Kevin Willard get their 13th win of the season, sweep the home series from the Red Storm. St. John's, they're just too inconsistent. I can't figure them out. You know, they started off the year 8-2. Since then, they've lost 5 and 7. They lost by 10 at Providence. Then they lost to Connecticut. They beat Georgetown, but then they followed that up with a 23-point loss to Creighton, and then the loss to Seton Hall at home. I don't have a lot of faith for them on the road. You look at their road games. They lost to Indiana by 2, which is fine. They lost to Providence by 10. They lost to Connecticut by 8. They lost to Creighton by 23. Those are their only road games. If you look at the game that's semi-home, where I think they played at Madison Square Garden against Kansas, they lost that one by 20. I can't figure out what's going on with Mike Anderson's team. They like to run, but if they don't force turnovers, they don't shoot well enough to win games. And they're terrible at the free throw line. And like we said with USC before, sooner or later that stuff catches up to you.
Yep, it is. Well, I'll tell you what. Any other final questions, folks, before we turn things over to Scott? And Scott with, back to the window at 3 p.m. right here on the Winners and Whiners Sports Betting Network. And try desperately to make sure that you say hello to Scott Sheen, because I'm sure that Scott is going to be quite pleased that his Kansas City Chiefs did him proud last night by winning. So there'll be that to deal with.
One last thing that I wanted to point out, if you saw an absolute, we were talking about basketball over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with John, our IUP,
Yeah.
He was upset that, they only combined for 101 points in the loss to Northern Kentucky the other day.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an absolute rock fight of a game that if any of you watched or bet the under on, which I talked about the other day, it was Boise State, San Diego State, Jim. I don't know if you saw this game.
No, I didn't see it.
Final score was, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Boise State 42, San Diego State 37.
It sounds like a high school score. Okay. That's a college game?
That was a college game. It was 23-22 at the half. Boise State led 35-24 with 10 minutes to go because San Diego State scored 1 point in the first 10 minutes of the second half. Then they went on a 13-0 run because Boise State didn't score for 8 minutes. 37-35, and then they scored the last 7 points to win it. Field goal percentages in that game. Boise State was finished 14 of 45 from the floor. San Diego State was 16 of 57. The difference in the game was free throw shooting. Boise State 9 of 11. San Diego State 1-5.
So basically, neither team shot more than 1 or 2%?
Actually, let's see. San Diego State shot, like I said, 16 of 57, which is 28.1%.
Oof.
Boise State shot 14 of 45, which is 31.1%.
I'm sorry. Those guys should just have stayed home and studied.
But I mean, that just shows you what kind of defense these teams play. I mean, you harass teams into shooting that badly.
Yeah.
Boise State, 15th effective field goal percentage defense at 44.8%. The Aztecs are second at 41.8%. Be an interesting matchup tomorrow when Boise State is at the Extra Mile Arena or whatever they call their building. They'll host Wyoming.
Oh, okay. We've liked the Cowboys, so we'll see how that goes. So, all right. Anybody else before we get out of here? Well, for Chris King, I'm Jim Williams. It's been a long weekend. We're all kind of limped into Monday, but we'll be back tomorrow and we'll be ready and rocking. Everybody have a great day. Remember,
Go UNC Wilmington, Roland.
What's that?
He asked about UNC Wilmington Northeastern. UNC Wilmington's played some good basketball of late.
Okay.
Takayo Siddle's got his team turned around. And, yeah, I didn't talk about South Carolina State versus Delaware State. Everybody knows the Hornets are bad. But to be honest, nobody thinks South Carolina State is all that great either. But, yeah, you can fade Delaware State. I mean, everybody does, right?
Yeah. Got to do what you do best. So, all right, we'll fade them. All right, gang, tell you what. We will see you tomorrow, 1:30. Remember Scott and Scott coming up here at 3 o'clock right here on Winners and Whiners Sports Betting Network. For Mr. King, I'm Jim Williams saying so long for today, guys.